whatever the reason allowed her to disappear from Egypt's archaeological and written record. Thus, when 19th century Egyptologists started to interpret the text on a Deir el-Bahari temple walls, their translation made no sense. Jean-François Champollion, the French decoder of hieroglyphs, which we talked about him in the previous episode, was not alone in feeling deeply confused by the obvious conflict between the words and the pictures. Champollion said, still more astonishing was I to find on reading the inscriptions that whatever they referred to this bearded king in the usual dress of the pharaohs, nouns and verbs were in the feminine. As thought a queen were in question, I found the same peculiarity everywhere. By the late 19th century, the truth had been revealed, and despite her masculine appearance, Hatshepsut had been restored to her rightful place as a female king. From 18th dynasty, the Queen Hatshepsut ruled Egypt since 1473 to 1458 BC. The whole story of the female king, the Queen Hatshepsut, in this video. Before we start, please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and like and follow the page on Facebook. I'm Mohamed Khairy. Welcome to Eye of Mystery Egypt. Welcome back. 18th dynasty, Thutmose II married his half-sister, the king's daughter, king's sister, and king's great wife, Hatshepsut, who, having inherited the office of God's wife of Amun from Merit Amun, used this as her preferred title. Egypt's new queen started to build a suitable consort's tomb in the remote Wadi Sikkit Ta'it al-Zayat on the Theban West Bank. On her sarcophagus was inscribed with a prayer to the mother goddess Nut, the king's daughter, God's wife, king's great wife, lady of the two lands. Hatshepsut says, "O my mother Nut, stretch over me so that you may place me amongst the undying stars that are in you, and that I may not die." Hatshepsut bore her brother one daughter, Neferu Ra, but no son. And so, when Thutmose II died unexpectedly after maybe 13 years on the throne, the crown passed to Thutmose III, a son born in the royal harem to the Lady Isis. As the new king was still an infant, and as the new king's mother was not considered sufficiently royal to act as regent, Hatshepsut was called upon to rule on behalf of her stepson. For several years, Hatshepsut acted as a typical regent, allowing the young Thutmose to take precedence in all activities. But already there were signs that Hatshepsut was not afraid to flout tradition. Her new title, Mistress of the Two Lands, was clear reference to the king's time-honored title, Lord of the Two Lands. More unusually, she commissioned a pair of obelisks to stand in front of the gateway to the Karnak temple of Amun. Obelisks, tall, thin, tapering shafts of the hard stone with pyramid-shaped tops, coated with gold foil, sparkled on the strong Egyptian sunlight, were understood to represent the first rays of light that shone as the world was created. By the time her obelisks were cut, Hatshepsut too had become a king, and her new titles were engraved with pride on her monuments. By year 7, Hatshepsut had been crowned king of Egypt, occurring in the process a full king's tutelary of 5 royal names. Thutmose III was never forgotten. He was scrupulously acknowledged as a co-ruler and the accession. But Hatshepsut was undeniably the dominant king of Egypt. Only towards the end of Hatshepsut's life would Thutmose occur anything like equal status with his co-ruler. Hatshepsut's semi-divine nature is emphasized on the walls of her mortuary temple, where a cartoon-like sequence of images and a brief accompanying text tell the story of her divine birth. Amon, we learn he fell in love with the beautiful queen of Egypt and has determined to father her child in one of the few scenes showing a queen communicating directly with a god. Amon is overwhelmed with love for his new daughter. He takes her from Hathor, the divine witness, kisses her and speaks, "Come to me in peace, daughter of my loins, beloved Mohamed Khairy. Thou art the king who takes possession of the diadem on the throne of Horus, of the living eternally." The temple walls show Egypt's new naked king with an unmistakably male body. Her identical and equally naked soul too is obviously male, but the new king's names are female. And neither her mother Ahmos nor Amon is in any doubt over the gender of their child, as a queen Hatshepsut had been happy to be portrayed as a conventional woman, slender, pale, and passive, but as a king she needed to find an image that would reference her new position while distancing her from the consort's rule. Towards the beginning of her reign, she was depicted either as a conventional woman or as a woman wearing male king's clothing. Two seated limestone statues recovered from Deir el-Bahari show her dressed in this hypered manner. Hatshepsut wears the traditional head cloth and kilt. She has a rounded, feminine, unbearded face and feminine body. Soon she evolves into an entirely masculine king, with a man's body, male clothing, male accessories, and male ritual actions. It seems that it is the appearance of the king that matters rather than her actual gender. The queen was an important element of the kingship. Like any other king, Hatshepsut needed a queen to fulfill the feminine aspect of her monarchy. And for this, she turned to her daughter Neferu Ra. She used the titles Lady of Upper and Lower Egypt, then the Mistress of the Lands, and she assumed the office of God's wife of Amon. The young princess was taught first by courtier Ahmos bin Nekhbet, next by Senenmut, Hatshepsut's most influential advisor. The new king interested her late brother's courtier, but gradually as her reign developed, she started to pick new advisors, many of whom, like Senenmut, were men of relatively humble birth. As Hatshepsut well realized, these self-made men had a vested interest in keeping her on the throne. If she fell, they fell with her. Senenmut, steward of Amon and tutor to Princess Neferu Ra, enjoyed a meteoric rise through the ranks, and this has sparked a great deal of speculation over the precise nature of his relationship with Hatshepsut. They certainly never married. Marriage was not an option of rules, but could they have been lovers? A crude piece of graffiti scrawled in a Deir el-Bahari tomb, which apparently shows a man with a woman wearing a royal headdress, cannot be accepted as conclusive proof of anything other than the fact that the ancient Egyptians enjoyed smoothie gossip as much as any other people. Hatshepsut turned her attention to trade. There were missions to Lebanon for wood, increased exploitation of the copper and turquoise mines in Sinai, and most important of all, during year 9, a successful trading mission to Bond. The real but almost legendary land of Bond was a source of many exotic treasures, precise raisins, curious wild animal, ivory, and gold. A single stela raised at Armand tells us that Hatshepsut died on the 10th day of the 6th month of the 22nd year of her reign. Finally, Thutmose was free to embark on what would be 33 years of highly successful solo rule. The mummy of Hatshepsut has been verified that the signs of her death are signs of natural death, and that the cause of her death could be cancer. Hatshepsut's tomb is in the Valley of the Kings, symbolized by number KV20. Perhaps Hatshepsut expanded her father's tomb to use it, and her coffin was found next to her father's coffin. Towards the end of Thutmose's reign, an attempt was made to delete Hatshepsut from historical record. This elimination was carried out in the most literal way possible. Her cartouches and images were chiseled off the stone walls, and she was excluded from the official history that now ran without any form of co-regency from Thutmose II to Thutmose III. At the Deir el-Bahari temple, Hatshepsut's numerous statues were torn down and in many cases smashed or disfigured before being buried in a pit. Over the river at Karnak temple, there was even an attempt to wall up her obelisks. While it is clear that much of this rewriting of history occurred during the later part of Thutmose's reign, it is not clear why it happened. It seems either that Thutmose must have died before his act of vengeance was finished, or that he had never intended a total obliteration of her memory at all. In fact, we have no evidence to support the assumption that Thutmose hated or resented Hatshepsut during her lifetime. Had he done so, he could surely, as head of the army, a position given to him by Hatshepsut, who was clearly not worried about her co-regent's loyalty, have led a successful coup. It may well be that Thutmose, lacking any sinister motivation, was towards the end of his life, simply engaged in tidying up his personal history, restoring Hatshepsut to her rightful place as a queen regent rather than a king. Thank you for watching my video, and don't forget to look at the sources before you go, and please don't forget to subscribe and like and share, and you will find me on YouTube and Facebook by the same name, Eye of Mystery Egypt.